Ah, how you doing, guys? You good? Awesome. So I posted a remote viewing tutorial yesterday, and people seem to like it. So I can be posting more like sci-related content. I don't mind. It's also one of my passions. All right, but I feel like I should have stressed the point more that you don't need to practice size skills. Just cultivate energy if that's the way you want to do it, or cultivate what's known as Shen. Shen is the next stage of Qi. Okay. After it's refined in the lower Dantian and it's accumulated, there are even deeper stages of refinement it can undergo. And in ancient Taoist in the ancient Taoist literature, they call this Shen. All right, but I refer to it as the mind. In reality, it's more like the light of your consciousness. Right, the consciousness which isn't separate from everything else. But we'll talk about all of that in different videos. Today is day 13. And the title of today's page is Absorption. So the first poem begins as follows. Crimson light through pine shadows. Oh, I love that. I'm already thinking it's like in the evening or early in the morning. Evening. Setting sun settling in the ocean. Night follows the setting sun. Day follows the fleeing moon. The cycle, the natural cycle. Day, night, day, night. Taoism is big on cycles. And I am too. And there is some beauty in following the natural path that you see all around you. What's very interesting is Taoism really formulated itself as like a scientific-ish inquiry into, okay, why does the natural world behave the way it is? Okay, and how can somebody live in it harmoniously, happily, you know? Um, and three, how can somebody influence it? Their solution to all of that was understanding yin and yang, okay, and all the other various forces in nature. So, and I think it's very interesting they went that direction. And of course, I love it. Versus the now modern conventional scientific approach to things. The scientific approach, it sort of compartmentalizes every single aspect of nature in its own originally, without necessarily without being part of a greater thing, you know, intimately. It wasn't until later in after like Newton that fundamental forces of nature like electromagnetism or the electroweak force uh, were all like the forces of nature were all combined into one thing. And right now they're trying to combine all the other forces with gravity. That's a fairly new development in terms of the development of science, right? But even then, um, it hasn't reached the point, science hasn't reached the point where it's able to adequately um, explain the spiritual connection between all things, right? And if there is one. Now, in fact, it openly avoids anything to do with consciousness and matter, mixing any of those two things. You can look at things like the Copenhagen experiment, which instead of uh, exploring, is there a link between an observer and the way like light behaves or anything like that? Um, it's more, they talk about it like more like collapsing the quantum wave into a definite concrete state. Um, so anyway, there is a ton of evidence for the stuff Taoists talked about. Not just Taoists. Okay, I'm using them as an example because they went really far into it, and I think they did a wonderful job. That's why I'm paying attention to them. Right? I think they're some of the best on the planet. Um, every culture, European, African, uh, Native American, they had a pretty good understanding that, hey, there is some kind of link between us as observers and the natural world. So, anyway, now back to the cycle. The cycle is the key. It was given a very big importance in Taoism. And if you, one day I'll review Opening the Dragon Gate, which goes super in depth into not just the little like cycle we experience, how even the planets affect our own like chakras, especially at the top of the head, and nadis and everything like that. It's really cool. So I'll review that book. But okay, so let's get into the author commentary. All too often, we tend to think of absorption as a static thing. So getting into the title of the page. Water is absorbed into a sponge and it stays there. Ah, this is wonderful. Meditative absorption, concentration, is not at all static. I've mentioned this in earlier videos, okay? But essentially, the deeper you focus on an object, the more the layers of your own ego sort of like peel back and you feel a very strong connection to it. Like right now, as I concentrate on this steering wheel, it's it's almost like I'm touching it, right? And in a way, I kind of am, mentally and all that. But I don't have the time to do it right now. But if you really just rest your awareness on it, all right, the you begin to feel like the underlying subtle rhythm of the void, empty space, um, whatever label you want to attach to that. But more importantly, you'll feel uh, your own relationship to it. Like there's no real distinction. The only distinction that exists between me and the steering wheel exists purely because I've set up mental boundaries to say I'm over here, it's over here. Water is absorbed into a sponge and it stays there. I also really like that. The water analogy, the author makes it just beautiful. True absorption is a total involvement in the evolution of life without hesitation or contradiction. Absorption. In nature, there is no alienation. Everything belongs. Going back to the natural world, our observations of the natural world. And in the distant past, all right, pretty much where like biomes were unique and distinct before humans basically like started mixing everything up. Everything did pretty much have its own place in nature, right? And the collapse of one population would affect everything else. It's still true today. Everything belongs. Okay. Only human beings hold ourselves aloof from this process. We do, don't we? In a way, we are. I'm not like a speciesist at all, right? But I do think human beings are above, can rise above the natural process, uh, simply due to the fact that mm, we have been gifted or we evolved uh, high intelligence. I think on its own, that gives us the ability to go beyond natural processes. Intelligence allows you to understand the natural world and to manipulate it to your own benefit, your own advantage, and more importantly, to go to, if you're on an individual level, if you're not content with a certain pattern, you're able to change it. And that's exactly what humans have done for hundreds of thousands of years. We have our civilization, our personal plans, our own petty emotions. Here, I'll diverge from the author a little bit. Emotions are not petty things. Emotions really run this world, okay? Because people aren't able to really control them or aren't able to integrate the energy emotions generate into not just their own practice, but into a healthy lifestyle. In Vajrayana, even Naropa, who is one of our founders, says openly, the emotion, you should use emotions as great helpers or assistants on the path, okay, and as guides, because they are extremely useful and helpful in helping you to navigate through whatever uh, Mahamudra throws at you, right? We divorce ourselves from process, even as we yearn for love, companionship, understanding, and communication. Yes. We constantly defeat ourselves by questioning, asserting ourselves at the wrong times, or letting hatred and pride cloud our perceptions. Our alienation is self generated. Yeah. Cultivation is about taking control of your own life, number one. You can't affect meaningful change, not just in the world, but in your own destiny, all right, if you don't take control. The Taoist approach to taking control is observing how the natural world takes control, or how the natural world, how do I explain this? It gives insight into the natural cycles of the world to allow you to reach your optimum state. giving you control over your own life, all right? Even though we are a microcosm of the macrocosm, right? It gives you control of the microcosm. And in later stages of development, according to the legends, control over the macrocosm in a big way. We are our own greatest enemy on the path. I've never had anyone interrupt my meditation in a meaningful way. I interrupt it because the mental chatter reaches a critical point, and I just decide, oh, today I'm feeling lazy, or today I'm not in the mood, or anything like that. The biggest obstacle you'll face is yourself. I know this personally. In the meantime, all of nature continues its constant flow. We need to let ourselves go, enter freely into the process of nature, and become absorbed in it. Taoism is the religion of nature, you know. It has a deep yearning to reconnect human beings to their origin. And it's one of the qualities that are most endearing about Taoism to me. The desire to fit into the natural world. And yeah, even looking at the trees in my compound, there is some kind of like alienation that I experience with them. Like they leading their own unique, separate lives, but I don't. It's almost like they're across like the city or something. They might as well be for all the connection I have with them. I think I'll try to. I think every day I'll spend at least 5 minutes in nature. Just not meditating or anything or trying to absorb energy, just experiencing it. If we integrate ourselves with that process, we will find success. Then the sequence of things will be as evident as the coming of the sun and the moon, and everything will be as it should be. Great page. Really went into what the fundamental aspects, the foundation of Taoism is all about, and I liked it quite a bit. I gained some inspiration from it and examined my own connection with the natural world. Man, I love this book. It's been really helpful. So, I hope you're having a great day of cultivation, meditation, or whatever you're doing. And hope to see you tomorrow. Take care.